you get Jameis? Sure. Can you get Russell? Sure. Can you get Kirk Cousins? Yeah. I can make the argument you could go get Andy Dalton, like bring that reunion tour back to town. I think that would be cool. But I think you need to do something, and I think you need to do it soon.
I think what I would wonder, though, is there someone who is that much better for the Cincinnati Bengals right now that you think the cost is worth it and that you think the rest of the team is ready to support them to make a playoff push? I think if you're not actually getting to the playoffs with this person, then you shouldn't be making this move because you built your team around Joe Burrow and Joe Burrow working with Jamar Chase and working with T. Higgins. And that's what it is. Like, we know Trey Hendrickson is going to lead the defense. The defense, what was so interesting to me, Andrew, is when we were listening to the broadcast on Monday night, and again, I was talking about how the broadcast teams get this information from the coaches on the staff that you can often learn a lot. And Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were talking about how defensive coordinator Al Golden told them, if not admitted to them, that yes, when you are playing as a defense and you have Joe Burrow on your team, you have a different aim than what you need to do as a defense when Joe Burrow is not there. And so I think we have to recognize that the entire Cincinnati Bengals team planned for one outcome and one set of circumstances that is now wildly different. In the same way that the Baltimore Ravens, who we'll get to, have to do something different without Lamar. If you feel like your team required Joe Burrow for success, then you shouldn't trade for someone else and give up assets for it. What I'd ask you, Andrew, is what do we expect of one, head coaches, and two, general managers when you lose your starting quarterback who's one of the best players in the league? Like, do we expect them to stay afloat? Do we expect them to make the playoffs? Like, what's a realistic expectation?
I mean, I made the point last week. It's a great question. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I'm losing track of time. It's week 5, that the backup quarterback position is the one position you need to spend money on. You go out and spend $8 million for Marcus Mariota if you think he's the guy to help keep your team afloat for a couple of weeks. And that's all they really need from him, a couple of weeks until Jaden Daniels gets back. This is obviously more than that. It's not a couple of weeks. It's the overwhelming majority of the season. Burrow got hurt week 2. Was it week 2 or week 3? It was week 3, whatever it was. He got hurt in September is my point. I don't know. If you look at the schedule, let's do that, Jori, because if you look at the schedule this week, they are home against Detroit. I saw the Lions up close last week. The Browns defense played them very tough. The score not indicative of how close the game was through 2.5 quarters, but they're a juggernaut. We know that. That game is in it's in Cincinnati. They're not with Jake Browning or Kirk Cousins showing up tomorrow or Jameis showing up tomorrow. They're not going to beat the Lions, my opinion. Then they go to Green Bay. Then they get the Steelers at home on a short week on Thursday Night Football. These next 3 games are brutal. I don't think they're going to win them with any quarterback. I do think, however, for the sake of the locker room and for the frustration you saw last night, and that's part of it with the locker room, that they need to make some kind of move. I would try Kirk Cousins. I really would. Now, is that offensive line going to protect him? No, probably not. Can he get the ball out quicker? Maybe. Yeah, he probably can. Can he read a defense and get it out quicker? I think he can. Same system. He'll be fine. When I go get Jameis, Jameis is like the fun cooker. He's the ultimate fun machine. I think it'd be a wild roller coaster. It'd be great to have him back in the AFC North. He's one of my favorite people. Sure, go do it. I don't know that Andy Dalton is going to be much of a difference maker. He could still play a little bit. There's a veteran that the Panthers have spent money on, and he came in last year and slung the ball around and actually played really well. For the sake of doing something, I think they have to do something. Now, how much do you pay? I don't know.
That was my
The Falcons
question.
aren't
What are you willing to spend?
Yeah.
What are you willing to give up for Kirk Cousins? I mean, I would say maybe like a Russell Wilson type thing if the Giants have already paid his salary. I actually think the Giants should be more concerned about keeping Jameis than Russ in some ways because Jameis has been such a mentor to Jackson Dart. But we know how expensive Kirk Cousins is. Like, are you actually willing to pay what it takes to get him for the level of play you're going to get?
Well, what would you give up? Would you give up 4? How about that?
I don't know. I think if you would, then you should feel like you should at least in the final weeks of the season be contending for the playoffs. I wouldn't say it's a fail if you don't make it to the playoffs because maybe you're just trying to develop your team for next year. But I think you would need to be winning, 9 games this season at least. Do you think Kirk Cousins is going to lead them to a 9-win season?
I don't know. It's a tough schedule. It's a tough answer.
If not, why we're paying for it?
All 7. They have all 7 of their picks. Here's where I think they risk, if they don't make a move, I think the frustration you saw last night from Jamar, I think only gets worse. And I think it permeates the locker room. I'm not in that locker room. I'm not pretending to know if they're on the edge of blowing up. I'm not suggesting they are. But if you have more and more games like we saw yesterday, it is inevitable. It is going to happen. And if you don't make a move, are you signaling to the locker room and to the team and to the city, yep, you know what? We're good as we are. We're going to ride this out. And if the season's a disaster, so be it. And you waste a year of Jamar's prime. You waste a year of T. Higgins' prime. You have, in essence, said goodbye to Trey Hendrickson because no one thinks he's coming back next year. And you wrote all those massive checks. I don't want to say for nothing because you hope to have the two wide receivers long term, but you wrote those checks for who, for what, to quote Ricky Waters. We'll go home now.
But I'm wondering if you're going to be in that situation even with one of these guys. I mean, if you look at ESPN's Seth Walder, who's definitely really rooted in analytics, he's not just going out there making opinions. He wrote an article in September, so just a couple weeks ago, ranking the backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And where do you think Jake Browning ranked on the backup quarterbacks in the NFL?
We're going 1 through 32. Obviously, we're not like counting two giants in there.
It's not 1 through 32. There's 12 on this list. Do you think he made the list?
Okay.
And if so, where?
Do I think he made I think he made the list on the I think he was like 10 to 12, somewhere in there.
He's 2. He's number 2 on this list by Seth Walder. Yes. So, that's what I'm saying is that people thought Jake Browning was the guy that you want to go trade for. Only Kirk was higher. And I'm not positive that Kirk coming in without the rapport that Jake Browning has. I think you need to give this a couple more weeks. You can say there's frustration, and there should be frustration. I also recognize that it's hard because, you're talking about, the Vikings and the Denver Broncos defenses are not the defenses you want your backup quarterback to have to go in and start. I get that Jake Browning beat the Vikings a couple years ago. We digress. Neither are the games that they have coming up. But I don't know that Kirk Cousins is going to be that much better. And okay, you mentioned giving up a third, giving up a fourth. I think you said a fourth. Well, it's not just a fourth. It's also what salary are you paying for him? Are you wanting to spend all this cap space on Kirk Cousins when you just maxed out on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? And you paid a lot of money to T. Higgins, even if you can get out after a couple of years. No, by the way, Trey Hendrickson. Who are they? Where's this money coming from?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Bengals have written a lot of checks. The idea that they're going to write another check because the Falcons are going to want someone to pay a lot of the freight here or chip in a higher pick. You want to just flip a 6 to the Falcons, then you're paying a lot of that money. A lot of that money. I hear you. I think they're in a bad spot. They need Jake Browning to play better. But this idea that he's going to throw up 300 yards a week and then we can get back to the Jake Browning from 3 years ago, I think is a bit delusional. And the schedule is brutal. But listen, the AFC North, other than the Steelers, it's kind of ugly right now. Let's talk about the Ravens because they fell to 1-3. We talked about them a little bit yesterday and how I joked that they were becoming the Bengals of last year. They're going to score 30 points a game and lose because the defense is going to give up more. Well, now they have Lamar Jackson injured, and there's a report out of Baltimore. He could be out multiple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. This week, they get the Houston Texans. So it's Cooper Rush that's up. John Harbaugh yesterday, and these comments have kind of flown under the radar, but the Ravens team site has written them up, BaltimoreRavens.com. I'm going to read from this article right now. Sarah Ellison, who covers the Ravens, had a long list of these quotes yesterday. She suggested that Harbaugh was hammering his offensive coordinator and his offensive staff. I don't know that he was hammering them, but instead of hammering Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator in his second year, he kind of defended Zach Orr and then turned the focus to the offense. And here, so the second possession, I'm reading from the team article. Their second possession ended when Lamar Jackson was intercepted by Chief linebacker Leo Chenal, who made a leaping grab in front of Mark Andrews. Jackson was heavily pressured before making the throw by an inside blitz the Ravens didn't pick up. And here's the quote now from Harbaugh. "It wasn't a good play call. It wasn't a play where we put our guys in the right position in that situation. I'm not happy with it at all. None of us are. We had downfield routes with no checkdowns. That kills your drive. I don't like that play call at all or the result of it." And I continue reading. On its next possession, Baltimore committed a pair of delay of game penalties in a 3-play span. Harbaugh, that was a bad series. We've got to look at it honestly as a coaching staff. That was not good. Later in the half, the Ravens went for it on 4th and 1. The Chiefs blitz the house. Spags went I think 13% cover 0 in that game, which is just maniacal. And Lamar had to throw the ball out of bounds. Harbaugh, you go for it and you don't have a good plan. You just don't. We didn't do a good job. That was a bad call. We didn't put our players in the position we needed to put them in to execute and convert on 3rd and short or 4th and short. And then he said they didn't run the ball. Quote, we didn't stick to the plan that we had. Now, sometimes in coaching, you deflect from criticizing the obvious target and you criticize someone else, right, to deflect. Don't look over here. I'm going to go after that guy. Todd Monken is amazingly respected around the NFL as a play caller, right? He's gotten universal praise the last couple of years for what he has done offensively. Now, some people don't like his playoff play calling, but what he has done with Lamar Jackson, who is now as deadly a pocket passer as there is in the league. But these quotes, they're different, Jori.
Yeah, I definitely would not like them if I were Todd Monken. I think the fact that this isn't a head coach with play calling responsibilities changes it, because if this is Brian Schottenheimer saying this, for example, who's both head coach and offensive play caller for the Cowboys, then he could be doing it because he is trying to deflect criticism from the players and put it onto the coaches and say, hey, I'm taking this responsibility. I should have done a better play call. It's harder to justify that when you have John Harbaugh there who is not calling the plays. And so that's where I think it gets tricky. But I will say, to me, this mostly underscores how special, unique, and irreplaceable Lamar Jackson is. And I know that almost sounds trite because we all know he's won MVPs, etc. But it's not just that he's super talented. It's that Cooper Rush is not going to be able to do what Lamar Jackson's doing, and that's fine. I still think actually Cooper Rush is one of the better backups in the league, and maybe top 5, top 10 backup in the league. I watched how many games he won for the Cowboys over the years, but I think you have to realize you need to call a game differently for Cooper Rush than Lamar Jackson, and you need to be ready to do that. And so for me, if you say, okay, Lamar's not playing again this week, I want to see a different play call and a different, not just different play call, I should say a different game plan for the entire week for an offense led by Cooper Rush. Because even if you're talking about Derrick Henry, well, without the threat of Lamar's legs, that's going to look different too.
Yeah, I'm curious what the offense looks like with Cooper Rush. I mean, Zay Flowers on any other team that didn't have Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson would be a top of the marquee kind of guy. They can't run the same offense. Clearly, there's no quarterback run game. They have to become a drop back team, a move the pocket team. They're facing a Houston team that, sees the sunshine this week because they finally won a game. But if Lamar's out multiple weeks, this is a test for Todd Monken. And curious, do you think, and again, we weren't there, but this strikes me almost as what like Belichick used to do. Like, I'm going to rip Tom Brady in front of the team because I know he can take it. Right? Even though I know there are other issues here, but I need to prove to other people that I'm going to take out this guy too.
Did we discuss the other day how Tom Brady said on a broadcast last week when they asked him, oh, you just knew that you were getting ripped because then everyone could, right? And Brady's like, no, I wanted to kill the guy because it drove me crazy. Like, do you know how many Super Bowls I won? So people don't, even if that is the intent, people do not always like it. So I would say that
no, it doesn't feel good.
It's possible John Harbaugh and Todd Monken disagreed on a couple play calls and he was trying to be like, hey, this is what I think we should do. It's possible that the players were frustrated and he was trying to side with the players over the coaches. I don't know. I also don't think it's that crazy. Like, most of this stuff becomes crazier when you say it in a public forum than that you said it at all. Because if he said in a meeting to Todd Monken, hey, this play call didn't work, that wasn't a good choice for that situation, that's what he should be doing. That's John Harbaugh's job to say that. The problem is, when do you start doing that publicly, and then why are you doing it publicly?
Yeah, exactly. Because there are plenty of coaches that want to criticize the play caller, but they do it behind the scenes. Or maybe they say, hey, you know what? Collectively, we need to look at what we're doing and maybe put our players in a better position. Right? That's the diplomatic way you say it, as opposed to saying, yeah, I didn't like the play call. We didn't have a plan. Bad. But hey, it's kind of the way things are going right now with the Ravens. They lose Lamar Jackson and half their defense is injured.